They'll try to replace us actors with artificial intelligence any day now. That startling claim does not come from some obscure science fiction author or a frantic tech doomsayer. It comes from Corey Feldman, the child star who once danced across 80s screens in cult favorites like The Goonies and The Lost Boys. His words are a jolt to the system, a wake-up call for everyone who cherishes the indescribable magic and emotional depth that great films can bring. How could lines of code ever match the moment an actor captures raw human vulnerability on set? And is Hollywood barreling toward a cold future in which computers generate scenes, scripts, and possibly entire casts without a single heartbeat in the process? Today, we are diving deep into Corey Feldman's stern warning about artificial intelligence, rummaging through his storied career, uncovering new details about the rumored Goonies sequel, and pondering whether that heartbeat might slip away, and what it would mean for those of us who still believe in the inspiring power of true creative energy. From an early age, Corey Feldman immersed himself in the emotional currents of the entertainment business. Despite a childhood that, by his own admission, brimmed with turmoil and exploitation at nearly every turn, he managed to become the voice, or rather, the face of an entire era of adventure-driven cinema. Think back to those golden years, a group of scrappy kids riding their bikes off to improbable escapades, comedic banter that popped with spontaneity, and an undefinable warmth that glowed through the screen. That intangible enchantment was not limited to big blockbuster hits. It saturated the entire creative atmosphere of the 80s. Feldman believes this feeling is in jeopardy as artificial intelligence creeps into the realm of filmmaking. And if you have ever felt moved by the raw sincerity of a classic film, maybe it was the nostalgic laughter in The Goonies or the poignant reflection in Stand By Me. The idea of a future shaped by pixel-perfect digital illusions rather than genuine human ingenuity should worry you, too. Yes, technology can dazzle, especially when used to create enthralling fantasy worlds, but there is a peril in letting it commandeer the soul of a movie. Hollywood's history is filled with special effects breakthroughs that enthralled audiences, from majestic animatronic beasts to the mesmerizing illusions conjured by practical sets. The difference, Feldman asserts, is that with artificial intelligence, we risk the fundamental humanity that underpins every meaningful story. Imagine a carefully tuned algorithm that scans thousands of successful scripts, picks out the tropes that have worked for the box office for decades, and spits out a new storyline with mechanical efficiency. Sure, the producers might love how quickly it can churn out hits, but would the characters feel truly alive? Could such a system replicate the tension, the heartbreak, or the adrenaline that pulses through vein-popping performances by an actual human cast? Of course, critics of Feldman's viewpoint insist that this is progress, that the unstoppable wave of innovation has always redefined Hollywood. They argue that large leaps in digital effects once caused alarm, too. In the early 2000s, many purists declared the end of true cinema when computer-generated imagery began to dominate. Yet something about artificial intelligence crosses into a new realm of creative displacement. Feldman worries that the technology is not just a tool, but a creeping replacement for what he values most: the intangible spark that emerges from human imperfection, spontaneous creativity, and emotional nuance. For him, no amount of wizardry with ones and zeros can replicate the raw intensity that an actor pours into a role or a writer channels into a line of dialogue at 3 in the morning. He further believes that artificial intelligence might not limit itself to conjuring new stories or visual effects. It could even attempt to mimic actual actors on screen. Picture a scenario where a resonant voice, a mesmerizing gaze, or a subtle facial tic that conveys heartbreak is simulated by code rather than performed by a flesh-and-blood artist. Feldman's stance is stark. Such illusions will be, at best, polished, but soulless reproductions. The human experience, as he calls it, or human experience, as he calls it, is not simply a matter of emotive display. It is the intangible communion between performer and audience, that flutter of recognition when we see a reflection of ourselves in the character's struggle. Naturally, some might say this debate is too grandiose, that we fans merely want a good show and do not necessarily care how the sausage is made. Feldman, however, points out that this brand of thinking chips away at what has defined cinema for over 100 years. Even as a younger generation grows up with advanced devices, instantaneous streaming, and a barrage of digital amusements, there remains a deep-seated yearning for stories that resonate on a deeper level. Does that yearning come from elaborate visual effects alone, or does it spring from the emotional closeness that arises when flesh and blood actors channel their own experiences into a role, even if just for a fleeting scene? He references the comedic scrapes and youthful exuberance of The Goonies, a film that endures decades after its release simply because it captured the genuine camaraderie of misfit kids who cherished one another's quirks. That synergy extended beyond the script pages, fueled by the spontaneous interplay of real actors, wrestling with the comedic timing of a well-crafted line or the improvised jab of a buddy. In Feldman's eyes, artificial intelligence can replicate a lot, except for that intangible bond. And if the day ever arrives that we see entire casts fabricated by an algorithm, he believes the final product might be as hollow as an echo chamber, missing the beating heart that compels us to root for the heroes. This conversation, though, is not merely about doom and gloom. Feldman acknowledges the practical uses of technology in art, from advanced editing software to refined camera equipment to sophisticated marketing tools. Still, he wants to draw a red line before we morph from using technology as an asset to letting technology become the originator. In many ways, his stance mirrors the tension that emerges whenever humankind stands on the brink of a monumental shift. Do we leap forward blindly, or do we consider the moral and emotional costs before forging ahead? Interestingly, Feldman's viewpoint is not simply shaped by fear. After all, he remains resolutely attached to creative pursuits himself, particularly in music. He is proud of his new single, cheering for the kind of innovation that works in harmony with passion rather than supplanting it. He recalls how, as a boy unable to read scripts, he relied on his natural ability to sing during auditions, a gift that opened the door to acting roles that would lead the way to longevity in show business. That spark of artistry and the joyful unpredictability it contains might be lost if the industry fully succumbs to machine-made scripts, synthetically generated tunes, or algorithmically compiled romances, comedies, and dramas. Speaking of mass nostalgia, perhaps there is no better example of the era's enduring pull than the swirling rumors of a Goonies sequel. Steven Spielberg's name is prominently mentioned, with Chris Columbus and other luminaries from the original film rumored to be returning in some capacity. But, as Feldman states, nothing is carved in stone. He himself has not seen a final script nor received any official invite. Still, the notion that Spielberg is involved in some capacity is enough to spark giddy excitement among fans who have grown up quoting that film's lines every time they spot a hidden treasure or hatch an adventurous plan with their friends. So, we might ask, is the film truly happening? Will a group of lovable weirdos be dusted off and brought back to life as middle-aged adventurers, reconnecting with what made the original film so pulsing with youthful vigor? Feldman believes that, if Spielberg is indeed putting his signature on the project, then it has a strong chance to preserve the truest essence of what made the original so iconic. After all, Spielberg remains that rare breed of filmmaker who can marry technological marvels to profoundly human storytelling, never allowing the spectacle to eclipse the emotional core. And if Beetlejuice can recapture fresh success with Michael Keaton and Winona Ryder stepping back into famously kooky roles, perhaps that same spark can rekindle the spirit of The Goonies. Here is the critical twist. The possible new chapter of The Goonies arrives just as Hollywood grapples with the unstoppable wave of artificial intelligence. You can practically hear Corey Feldman's cautionary tone. If the script is written by heart, if the sets are alive with genuine collaboration, if the quirky charms that define the original are nurtured, only then can the new film evoke the same brand of whimsy that helped spark so many childhood imaginations. Perhaps nostalgia is the ultimate test. If you try to replicate it purely with algorithms, the final product might lack that intangible spark. And if you are enjoying how we are peeling back the layers of this controversy, consider sharing your reactions. Perhaps even give this exploration a quick like or a comment, letting us know your own cinematic nostalgia. Sometimes, a small gesture can keep these discussions alive. Let us not forget that Feldman endured real darkness in his youth, including predators lurking in an industry that often saw child stars as commodities. The fact that he still defends the industry's creative integrity shows how deeply he treasures the genuine artistry that can flourish within it. He acknowledges that progress always has pros and cons. The entertainment world, for better or worse, is not the same as it was when arcade machines and neon fashion were at their peak. Yet many of us hold dear those cinematic moments that shaped our imagination. Feldman's discourse on artificial intelligence, then, is ultimately another iteration of that age-old tension. The unstoppable tide of high-tech convenience collides with the delicate tapestry of purely human creativity. In hindsight, Hollywood has always been an evolving beast. From silent films accompanied by live orchestras to color motion pictures, from epic practical sets to early digital effects, from puppet-based creature features to fully realized computer-generated images, each generation faced revolutionary transformations. Yet, as Feldman suggests, artificial intelligence might be a leap too far. It is not a mere tool, but an eager contender for the entire creative role. If it can chart a film's storyline, orchestrate the editing, and even mimic the expressions of beloved actors, are we still engaging with an authentic reflection of human experiences, or are we drifting into a self-contained realm of illusions? That question haunts not just the Hollywood insiders, but also the global audience who invests time and emotional energy into these narratives. After all, it is not just nostalgia we stand to lose. The raw expression of tears and drama, the comedic timing that emerges from real camaraderie, the synergy among castmates who truly bond and improvise in the moment. These are the intangible elements that, in Feldman's mind, will fade away if entire productions become software-based showcases. Even if the illusions crafted by artificial intelligence are breathtakingly detailed, they might lack the subtle comedic breath between lines, the awkward pause that conveys heartbreak, or the unspoken synergy that resonates between scene partners who have lived those characters for months. He sees the new wave of experimentation in artificial intelligence as something that can quickly overshadow the real gifts that people bring into every frame. Some studios might be tempted by the efficiency. After all, a machine does not need breaks, does not hold out for higher salaries, and does not push back with creative differences. Yet the final product could devolve into a spectacle of hollow fireworks, bright and momentarily fascinating, but ephemeral and devoid of the lasting warmth of genuine humanity. That is precisely the scenario Feldman wants to avoid, and he urges the decision-makers, as well as the audience, to remain vigilant and to keep real hearts and souls at the core of studio endeavors. Naturally, some fans wonder whether a star with Feldman's complicated experiences is simply jaded, or whether he is truly pinpointing a precarious crossroad. But passion for artistry is rarely baseless. The same spirit that soared through Feldman's comedic quips in The Goonies, or his dramatic edge in Stand By Me, fuels his conviction that the next wave of Hollywood must still prize the actor, the writer, and the hands-on director above any algorithmic solution. And let us not overlook the deeper question. Even if artificial intelligence can conjure a passable cinematic experience, should it do so, is convenience or novelty enough reason to hand over the keys to creative production? This moral conundrum is precisely why figures like Feldman take a stand. They demand that the industry consider the intangible aspects of artistry, the real sweat, the pulse-quickening fear when tackling a difficult scene, the joyous unpredictability that leaps off the screen and into our hearts. If such experiences are replaced by a sterile approximation, would we even notice the difference after a generation has grown used to purely synthetic performances? Feldman believes we would, as the soul of the art form would be slowly drained. And if you want more deeply thought-out explorations of how beloved stars reflect on the ever-shifting state of pop culture, consider subscribing and staying tuned. Conversations like these unravel layers the mainstream headlines often overlook. The potential Goonies sequel thus serves as a kind of litmus test. If it can deliver that authentic, slightly chaotic, thoroughly heartwarming vibe that turned the original into a timeless adventure, perhaps it signals that there is still enough integrity in the industry to hold back the onslaught of purely synthetic productions. Producers and fans alike might see the commercial viability in reuniting the cast who gave us those memorable roles. Or maybe the entire project emerges as something entirely new, guided by fresh perspectives, while tapping into the warm nostalgia of a cherished franchise. The key, Feldman insists, is to remember that authenticity is crucial. Because if that intangible authenticity evaporates, even the best special effects in the world will not recapture the sense of childlike wonder that the Goonies once conjured. Zooming out from this specific tale, you can see how it parallels broader cultural shifts. All over the world, industries wrestle with automation, from banks that rely on chatbots to restaurants that function on app-based ordering. but the arts, particularly cinema, hold a special place in society. They reflect our fears, our hopes, our embarrassments, and our triumphs in ways that no machine can truly emulate. Artificial intelligence can process patterns, but does it understand heartbreak? It can replicate comedic timing, but does it feel the inhale before a line is delivered? According to Feldman, it simply cannot. Not truly. It can only mimic the intricate tapestry of human existence. As the timeline inches forward, and fans latch onto any new tidbit about the Goonies sequel, the specter of an artificial intelligence-driven future grows. Will Hollywood harness the technology responsibly, ensuring that it remains a tool rather than a puppet master? Will it risk erasing the fundamental creative spark, overshadowing brilliant scriptwriters and devoted actors in favor of the convenience that cutting-edge programs can provide? These are not idle questions. They cut to the heart of what makes cinema an art form rather than mere content. And for Corey Feldman, a man who survived the child star machine, overcame personal demons, and still cherishes the shimmering promise of a well-made movie, the stakes could not be higher. In the end, it is more than just about worrying. It is about preserving the essence of storytelling. Every generation has its challenges, from the introduction of talking pictures to the migration of big-budget films onto streaming platforms. Yet artificial intelligence stands as a particularly robust game-changer because it can move past behind-the-scenes utilities and venture directly into shaping narratives, orchestrating sequences, or even fabricating entire casts. Feldman's rallying cry, therefore, is for everyone, fans, creators, producers, to step into the conversation with open eyes. If you love the glimmer and grit of classic cinema, if you feel the pang of nostalgia whenever an old theme song plays, or if you remember how a simple line from an 80s classic could reshape your mood for the better, then you have a stake in deciding how far artificial intelligence should be allowed to go. Yes, progress can be thrilling, and new tools invariably guide art to new frontiers. But if we surrender the entire creative enterprise, do we risk severing the very tie that connects artists to audiences? That is the fundamental question threaded through Feldman's warning. And when rumors swirl that the next generation of timeless films might be tailor-made by algorithms, we have to ask ourselves whether a quick surge of novelty is worth the potential loss of that quintessentially human spark behind every line, every moment, and every mistake that made beloved classics so enthralling. Ultimately, Corey Feldman is not demanding we halt technological evolution. He is imploring us to weigh how much of our storytelling heritage we are willing to cede to an artificial mind. Whether or not you fully agree with his stance, few can deny that this conversation feels urgent. Hollywood might soon determine whether future blockbusters will be shaped by living, breathing minds or by intangible calculations woven inside a server farm. Meanwhile, fans continue to watch, wait, and debate. A new Goonies might succeed in delivering vibrant, deeply felt character arcs that no algorithm could conceive, reaffirming cinema's potential to awaken hearts worldwide. Or it might fail, offering an empty echo of the original. If Spielberg's own brand of imaginative wizardry remains a guiding force, people like Feldman may keep faith that the old magic can survive, so long as human creativity remains the root from which new stories grow. With that, we conclude our exploration of Corey Feldman's bracing outlook on the future of Hollywood and the possible Goonies sequel. The tension between innovation and authenticity has never been higher, and the resolution may well define how we experience movies for generations to come. Whether you side with Feldman's protective stance over the memory-rich enchantment of 80s cinema, or you embrace the winds of change, it is clear that we stand at a pivotal moment in entertainment history. The guiding hand of Spielberg, the cherished legacy of the Goonies, and Feldman's protective instincts provide a multi-layered lens through which we can peer at the road ahead. Perhaps the magic will endure, enriched by technology, but never replaced by it. That, in the end, is the hope that continues to flicker among movie lovers who yearn for storytelling that touches mind, heart, and soul, something no algorithm can yet truly replicate.